The morning sun rose over New Haven like any other day. The colony had been there for 12 years now. 50,000 humans called this place home. They had farms, schools, and families. They had built a life on this distant world. Commander stood on the bridge of the defense station, watching the planet below. His coffee was getting cold. He didn't care much about coffee right now. The massive ships hanging in space above the colony took all his attention. 7 alien vessels. Each one was 3 times larger than anything humans had ever built. They had arrived 6 hours ago without warning. No greeting, no explanation, just silence and waiting. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," said Lieutenant Menu from the communications desk. His voice was steady, but his hands shook slightly. "Put it through," said. He set down his coffee cup and straightened his uniform. The screen flickered to life. The alien that appeared was tall and covered in dark purple scales. Its eyes were yellow and cold. Behind it could see rows of soldiers standing at attention. "I am War Marshal of the Empire," the alien said. Its voice was translated by the computer into flat, emotionless words. "Your species has colonized a world that belongs to us. You have 72 hours to evacuate completely. After that time, we will destroy everything you have built here. We will kill anyone who remains. This is not a negotiation. This is a statement of fact." Felt his jaw tighten. This planet was unclaimed when we arrived. We surveyed the entire system. There was no one here. The War Marshal's expression didn't change. "The Empire claims all worlds in this sector. Your ignorance of our laws is not our concern. 72 hours. If you are intelligent, you will leave." The screen went black. Stared at the empty screen for a long moment. Around him, the bridge crew waited in silence. Everyone had heard the message. Everyone knew what it meant. "Get me Administrator on the surface," said quietly, "and send a priority message to Earth High Command. Tell them we need help. Tell them we need it now." Down on the planet's surface was already in motion. She had heard the transmission too. Every screen in the colony had received it. People were scared. Parents held their children. Shop owners stood in doorways looking up at the sky. Was 34 years old. She had spent the last 5 years building this colony from nothing. She knew every street, every building, every family. These people had trusted her to keep them safe. She called an emergency meeting in the central plaza. Thousands of people gathered. The crowd was quiet, waiting. "We have 3 days," said. Her voice echoed across the plaza through speakers. "They have given us an ultimatum. Commander is trying to negotiate with them. We're asking Earth for help, but we need to be realistic. Help might not come in time." A woman in the crowd shouted, "What do we do?" Took a breath. "We prepare to evacuate. We'll load as many people as we can onto every ship we have. Priority goes to children and elderly. Everyone else will have to wait for the second wave. Start packing only what you can carry. Food, medicine, important documents. Leave everything else." The crowd began to murmur. Fear rippled through the people like wind through grass. A man pushed forward from the back. Recognized him. The chief mining engineer. He was older than most colonists, maybe 50. His face was weathered from years working in the sun and dust. "We're not leaving," said loudly. The crowd went quiet again. "We don't have a choice," said gently. "There's always a choice," replied. He climbed up onto the platform next to her. "I've spent 3 years building the mining operation here. Do you know what we have? Massive drilling equipment, explosives, fusion reactors, orbital elevators. We have resources." "We're not soldiers," someone in the crowd yelled. Nodded. "You're right. We're not soldiers. We're engineers. We're farmers. We're teachers. But we're also humans. And humans don't run just because someone bigger tells us to." Wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him he was being foolish. But she looked at the faces in the crowd. She saw anger mixing with fear. She saw people who had worked so hard to build this place. They didn't want to leave. They wanted to fight. "Let me talk to Commander," said. Back on the defense station, received the response from Earth. His heart sank as he read it. The message was simple and terrible. Earth's nearest fleet was 3 weeks away. Maybe they could arrive in 2 weeks if they pushed the engines to maximum. But 3 days? Impossible. They were alone. His console beeped, was calling. "Commander, I have an engineer here who thinks we can fight back," said. Almost laughed. Almost. "With what? We have 12 patrol boats and some mining ships. They have warships that could destroy us in minutes." "I know," said, "but wants to talk to you. He has ideas." Looked at the massive alien ships on his screen. He thought about the 50,000 people below. He thought about running, about abandoning everything they had built. Then he thought about the alien's cold, yellow eyes, the contempt in its voice. "Send him up," said. "Let's hear these ideas." Arrived on the station 2 hours later. He brought blueprints and calculations. He spread them across the briefing room table while the senior officers gathered around. "They scanned our colony," explained. "Their scans showed mining equipment, civilian vessels, nothing military. They think we're helpless." "We are helpless," said Captain, the station's tactical officer. Smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. "No, we're human. There's a difference." He pointed to the blueprints. "Every piece of mining equipment we have can be weaponized. Every civilian ship can carry explosives. Every colonist knows how to work under pressure. The aliens think they know what humans are. Let's show them they're wrong." Studied the plans. They were desperate, crazy. They probably wouldn't work. But they were something. "How long do you need?" asked. 2 days to set up the basics," said. "Then we make them regret ever coming here." Looked around the room. Every face showed the same expression. Fear, yes, but also determination. "Do it," said. "We have 72 hours to teach these aliens a lesson. Let's make it count." The colony transformed overnight. What had been a peaceful mining settlement became something else entirely, something dangerous. Worked without sleeping. He moved from one mining site to another, showing workers how to convert their equipment. The massive drilling lasers that cut through rock could cut through other things too. The explosive charges used for mining could be packed into containers and launched. "It's all about thinking differently," told a group of miners. "They see tools, we see weapons. They see civilians. We see soldiers who just haven't been asked to fight yet." In the orbital dock, pilot and navigator stood looking at their small mining ship. It was called the Morning Star, and it was designed to haul ore, not fight battles. The ship was slow, poorly armored, and had no weapons at all. "This is suicide," said quietly. Shrugged. "Probably. You don't have to come." Punched his shoulder. "Idiot, of course I'm coming. Someone needs to keep you alive." They had been flying together for 6 years. Was reckless and brave. Was careful and smart. Together they made a good team. Now they would find out if they could make a good combat team too. Commander assigned them to lead a small strike force. 5 mining ships total. Their job was to harass the fleet, buy time, make the aliens think twice. It was a dangerous job, maybe a deadly job. "We'll retrofit your ships with," said Lieutenant Menu. "They're old technology, but they work. Solid metal projectiles fired at high speed. Simple but effective." "Will they punch through alien shields?" asked. Menu hesitated. "We don't know." In her laboratory, scientist was trying to answer that exact question. She had recorded every scan of the ships. She studied their energy signatures, their shield frequencies, everything she could measure from a distance. The aliens had powerful shields. That was clear. But notice something interesting. The shields were designed to deflect energy weapons. Lasers, plasma, particle beams, all the advanced weapons that modern civilizations used. Humans still used. Stupid, primitive kinetic weapons that just threw metal really fast. The other species had moved past such things centuries ago. Maybe that was an advantage. Ran simulations. The numbers were promising. Projectiles might actually penetrate the shields better than energy weapons. The shields weren't designed to stop solid objects moving at high velocity. She sent her findings to Commander immediately. Down on the surface, organized the colonists. She divided them into groups. Some would continue evacuation preparations in case this all failed. Others would help with the defense. Everyone had a role. A teacher named volunteered to coordinate supply lines. A farmer named Sora offered her crop-dusting aircraft for reconnaissance. A mechanic named Bora started building improvised mines from spare parts. Humans were good at improvising. It was one of their best talents. The first day passed, then the second day. They didn't attack. They just waited, confident in their superiority. They had done this to hundreds of other species. Humans would be no different. Humans would run or humans would die. On the morning of the third day, and prepared for their first mission, their mining ship had been transformed, were bolted to the hull. The cargo bay was filled with explosive charges. The engines had been overclocked to run hotter and faster than they should. "If the engines don't explode, the aliens will probably kill us anyway," joked as they ran through pre-flight checks. "Your optimism is inspiring," replied dryly. 4 other ships joined them in formation. The pilots were all civilians, a cargo hauler named, a transport pilot named, 2 racing enthusiasts named, and none of them were military. All of them volunteered anyway. "This is Commander," the radio crackled. "Your mission is simple. They are sending a scout group to scan our defenses. 3 ships. Intercept them in the asteroid field at Sector 7. Hit them fast and disappear. Show them we're not afraid." "Understood," replied. He looked at Reddy. "No," said, "but let's go anyway." The 5 human ships left the station and headed for the asteroid field. It was a 40-minute flight. Used the time to study the tactical data had sent, the weak points in shields, the best angles of attack, the likely response patterns. The aliens were predictable. They had fought the same way for centuries. Overwhelming force, direct assault. They didn't expect clever tactics because none of their previous enemies had used clever tactics. Humans were different. "Contact," announced. 3 scouts entering the field. They're moving slow, scanning everything. Switch to the squadron channel. Everyone remember the plan. We go in fast, fire everything, then break off into the asteroids. Use the rocks for cover. Don't try to be heroes. Hit and run. The ships were beautiful in a terrible way. Sleek and deadly, covered in weapons and armor. Each one was 10 times larger than the human mining ships. "Weapons hot," said. His hands were steady on the controls. His heart was racing, but his mind was calm. This was just flying. He knew how to fly. The human ships accelerated. They came at them from 3 different angles, using asteroids to hide their approach. The aliens didn't see them until it was almost too late. Fired first. They roared. Metal projectiles shot through space at incredible speed. They hit the nearest ship's shields and punched straight through. The shields flickered and failed. The projectiles tore into the hull. Explosions blossomed across the alien ship. "Shields are vulnerable," shouted. Was right. The other human ships opened fire. Rounds hammered the scouts from multiple directions. The aliens tried to return fire, but the humans were too fast, too unpredictable. They weaved between asteroids, using the massive rocks as shields. One ship exploded. Its reactor went critical, and the entire vessel came apart in a flash of light. The second ship tried to retreat. Its cargo hauler intercepted it and released a full load of mining explosives. The charges detonated against the ship's hull. Metal twisted and atmosphere vented into space. The third ship managed to send a distress signal before and hit it from both sides. Their coordinated attack overwhelmed the ship's defenses. It went dark and began drifting. 3 alien ships destroyed in less than 5 minutes. Couldn't believe it. His hands were shaking now. Did we just win? We survived, corrected. That's not the same as winning. Now we run before their friends show up. The 5 human ships disappeared into the asteroid field. Behind them, debris from the scouts floated in the darkness. On the command ship, the war marshal stared at his screens in disbelief. 3 ships lost, to mining vessels, to primitives who barely understood space travel. How, he demanded. His tactical officer studied the data. Their weapons are kinetic projectiles, Marshal. Our shields are not optimized for such primitive technology. Primitive, the war marshal repeated. The word tasted wrong in his mouth suddenly. He had conquered 200 species across the galaxy. He had never lost ships to a first contact engagement. Never. These humans fought differently. They didn't follow the rules. They used old technology in new ways. They turned civilian ships into weapons. The war marshal made a decision. Send 30% of the fleet. Destroy the colony's defenses. I want these humans to understand what happens when they resist the Empire. Back at New Haven, and his squadron returned to cheers. Word of their victory had spread fast. Colonists celebrated in the streets. For the first time in 3 days, people had hope. But Commander didn't celebrate. He looked at the incoming sensor data, and his expression was grim. They were coming, not 3 ships this time, over 200 ships, capital vessels, fighters, carriers, an armada that could flatten the entire colony in hours. Get me, said quietly. Tell him we need everything ready now. The real battle is about to begin. The fleet came like a storm. 200 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They moved with military precision, spreading out to surround the colony. Their weapons powered up. Their shields glowed with energy. They looked unstoppable because they had always been unstoppable. Commander watched them approach on his screens. Around him, the bridge crew worked frantically. Every person had multiple jobs now. There weren't enough trained military personnel, so teachers and engineers and shop owners filled the gaps. They learned fast because they had to. All defensive positions report ready, Lieutenant Menu said. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed fear. Everyone was afraid. The difference was they didn't let fear stop them. Launch the drones, ordered. Thousands of mining drones lifted from the colony surface. They were small robots designed to collect ore samples and scan rock formations. Had them. Now they carried explosives. Each drone was a tiny bomb with engines and basic guidance systems. They saw them coming. Their sensors registered the drones as debris, as junk, as nothing important. Mining equipment wasn't a threat. That was their first mistake. The drones swarmed the fleet like angry insects. They came from all directions, too many to track, too small to waste ammunition on. The aliens tried to shoot them down, but there were thousands of them. The first drones reached the fleet and detonated. Individually, each explosion was small, but thousands of small explosions happening at once created chaos. Shields flickered under the assault. Sensors were blinded. Communications were disrupted. Now, shouted, hit them now while they're confused. Every weapon the colony had opened fire at once. Hidden in mining facilities shot metal projectiles into space. Cargo haulers released clouds of improvised mines. The orbital elevator, that massive structure connecting the planet to orbit, became a weapon itself. Had loaded its transport pods with explosives and launched them like missiles. The war marshal screamed orders at his fleet. Destroy those weapons, destroy everything. The alien ships returned fire. Energy beams cut through space. Missiles streaked toward the planet. The first human casualties came fast. 3 mining facilities were destroyed in seconds. Hundreds of people died. But the humans didn't stop. They couldn't stop. This was their home. Coordinated the ground defenses from the command center. Screens showed her every battle happening simultaneously. She made impossible decisions every second. where to send reinforcements, which positions to abandon, who lived and who died. The northern sector is taking heavy fire, reported the teacher who now managed logistics. They need support. Send Bora's team, ordered, and evacuate everyone from Grid 7. We can't hold that position. On the screens, she watched Bora's mechanics rush toward the battle in mining vehicles. These were people who had never held a weapon before this week. Now they were soldiers because someone had to be. In orbit led his squadron through the chaos. His mining ship had survived the first battle, but it was badly damaged now. Warning lights flashed across his console. The engines made terrible sounds. "We're losing power," said. She worked frantically at the navigation console, trying to keep them alive. "We need to fall back." Saw a capital ship ahead. It was huge, almost a kilometer long. Its weapons were tearing apart the human defenses. If that ship survived, the colony was doomed. "I've got a better idea," said. "Oh no," knew that tone. "Whatever you're thinking, don't." "Tell everyone to get to the escape pods," said calmly. "We're going to ram that ship." "You're insane." "Probably, now go." Wanted to argue. She wanted to tell him he was being stupid and reckless and heroic in the worst way. But she looked at the capital ship, at the destruction it was causing, at the people dying below. 30 seconds, she said. "I'm not leaving before that." Smiled, wouldn't expect anything else. He aimed the mining ship directly at the capital ship's bridge. The aliens saw him coming. They fired everything they had at his small vessel. Energy beams hit the shields. Missiles exploded against the hull. The mining ship kept coming. Diverted all power to the engines and shields. Everything else went dark. Life support, weapons, communications, just engines and shields. The ship accelerated to maximum speed. 20 seconds counted down. 15, 10. At 5 seconds, she grabs arm. "It's been good flying with you." "See you on the other side," said. At 2 seconds, they both hit the ejection button. The escape pod shot away from the mining ship just as it impacted the capital ship. The explosion was massive. The mining ship's overloaded reactor detonated on impact. The capital ship's shields collapsed. The explosion tore through the bridge and into the command center. Secondary explosions rippled along the huge vessel's length. The capital ship began to tumble. It crashed into 2 other ships. All 3 vessels spiraled out of control, their crews dead or dying. Its escape pod was caught in the blast wave. It spun wildly through space. Inside, they held onto each other as the pod tumbled. Everything went dark. Down on the planet watched the explosion from his workshop. He allowed himself a small smile. Then he went back to work. His big surprise wasn't ready yet. He needed more time. The problem was time was running out. The War Marshal was beyond anger now. He had lost over 80 ships. 80, against a primitive colony that shouldn't have been able to destroy even one. "What are these humans?" he whispered. His tactical officer pulled up data. "They're adapting, Marshal. Every tactic we use, they find a counter. They fight without rules, without honor. They turn everything into a weapon." The War Marshal understood something then. Every species that had conquered fought the same way. They had established militaries with standard tactics. When those tactics failed, they surrendered. Humans didn't have a proper military here. They had miners and farmers and teachers, but every single one of them fought like a soldier. They improvised. They sacrificed. They refused to give up. "Pull back," the War Marshal ordered. "Regroup at maximum range." Marshal, his tactical officer, was shocked. "We still have overwhelming numbers." "Numbers don't matter if we don't know what we're fighting," the War Marshal said. He looked at the planet below. Humans were down there. Dangerous, unpredictable humans who had already cost him 40% of his fleet. He sent a message to the High Council. It was hard to write. It admitted weakness. It admitted that he, a war marshal who had conquered hundreds of worlds, couldn't defeat one small colony. The message said, "Send everything. These humans are different. They are dangerous. We need maximum force to defeat them." The High Council received his message. They discussed it briefly. Then they authorized total war. 80% of the Empire's military would converge on this single planet. They would show the entire galaxy what happened to species who resisted. Back on New Haven, search and rescue teams found an escape pod floating in the debris field. Both pilots were unconscious but alive. Herself went up to the medical station to check on them. Woke up first, his head hurt and everything was blurry. Did we get it? You destroyed 3 capital ships, told him. You beautiful, stupid, reckless fool. Yes, you got it. Tried to smile, but his face hurt too much. Good. When can I get back in a ship? Never, said firmly. You're grounded permanently. We'll see about that, closed his eyes again. Woke up an hour later. The first thing she asked was where's. He's fine, assured her. You're both fine. Then why do you look so worried? Hesitated. Then she told the truth. They were coming back, not with 200 ships, with thousands. The entire might of their empire was coming to crush this one small colony. How long do we have? Asked. 3 days, maybe 4. Laughed. It hurt to laugh, but she couldn't help it. 3 days to prepare for the end of the world. At least we know what we're doing now. The Armada was the largest military force ever assembled by their empire. Over 2,000 warships traveling together through space. When they arrived at New Haven, they would bring death and destruction on a scale the humans couldn't imagine. Or so the thought. Commander received the intelligence 3 days before the fleet would arrive. His scouts had detected the massive force while it was still traveling through faster-than-light space. The numbers were terrifying. 2,000 ships versus the few dozen damaged vessels the humans had left. We can't win this, Lieutenant Minu said quietly. Sir, we need to evacuate. We can save most of the colonists if we start now. Almost agreed. Almost. Then his communication console lit up with an incoming message. The source was listed as All Human Colonies Priority 1. He opened the message. What he read made his eyes go wide. Was in the command center when called her. She had been working for 72 hours straight, coordinating repairs and preparations. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep. Her hands shook from too much coffee. I need you to see something, said. His voice sounded strange, almost happy. Dragged herself to a monitor, transferred the message to her screen. She read it once, then again, then a third time. Is this real? She whispered. I myself said, it's real. The message was from Earth, but it wasn't from the military or the government. It was from everyone. Every human colony, station, and ship within 50 light-years had received the ultimatum. They had all heard about New Haven's fight. And they were all coming to help. Earth's official military fleet was still 2 weeks away, but they weren't alone anymore. Civilian ships were coming. Cargo haulers, colony transports, mining vessels, science ships, even personal yachts. Every human with a ship and a weapon was burning toward New Haven at maximum speed. How many? Asked. Estimates say over 500 ships, replied. Maybe more. They're coming from everywhere, and they're not asking for permission. They're not waiting for orders. They're just coming. Felt tears on her face. She wiped them away quickly. We need to hold out until they arrive. 4 days, said. If the attack on schedule, we need to survive for 4 days. 4 days. It seemed impossible, but humans were good at doing impossible things. Worked in the main fusion reactor facility. He had commandeered the entire building and filled it with equipment and cables and things that definitely weren't supposed to be there. When came to check on him, he was covered in grease and muttering calculations to himself. Please tell me this is going to work, said. Looked up. His eyes were bright with the kind of crazy confidence that engineers get when they're doing something dangerous and brilliant. Define work. If you mean will it create the biggest electromagnetic pulse in human history, then yes. If you mean will it not kill us all in the process, then probably. Probably isn't very reassuring. It's the best I can do with 4 days and mining equipment, said. The theory is sound. We overload the fusion reactor, channel all the energy through these modified containment fields, and release it in one massive burst. The EMP will knock out every electronic system within 1,000 kilometers, including ours, pointed out. That's why we'll hardwire the critical systems with shielding, explained. And we'll time it perfectly. They come in, we hit them with the EMP, their ships go dark, and we have maybe 45 seconds to kill as many as we can before their backup systems come online. 45 seconds, repeated. Give or take, smiled. It'll be enough, it has to be. Across the colony, other preparations were happening. Scientists had found a way to hack into the communication network. It took her 2 days of constant work, but she broke their encryption. Now she could listen to their transmissions. More importantly, she could send transmissions. I can broadcast to their entire fleet, told Commander. Whatever you want to say to them, they'll hear it. Thought about that. Save it for the right moment, when we need maximum psychological impact. In the medical center, was recovering faster than the doctors expected. His body was young and strong. The injuries looked worse than they were. Sat beside his bed, her own injuries already healed. I heard about the civilian fleet coming, said. We're not alone anymore. We were never alone, replied. That's what they don't understand. Humans don't fight as individuals, we fight as a family. Attack one of us, you attack all of us. Poetic grinned. You should write that down. Shut up and rest. But couldn't rest. He climbed out of bed despite the doctor's protests. His ribs hurt and his head was still fuzzy, but he could stand. He could walk. He could fly. I'm not sitting here while everyone else fights, said. Find me a ship. Had been recruiting volunteers for the final battle. She expected hundreds. She got thousands. Every single colonist who could hold a weapon wanted to fight. Even the elderly and the children wanted to help somehow. We'll put the children in the shelters, told the parents. They'll be safe there. A woman named stepped forward. She was a school principal, small and kind-looking. Now she held a rifle and her eyes were hard. My students are in those shelters. I'm going to make sure no alien gets anywhere near them. That was the spirit everywhere. People who had never fought before were ready to die defending their home, because this wasn't just a colony anymore. This was humanity making a stand. The Armada arrived exactly on schedule. 2,000 warships emerged from faster-than-light travel in a formation that covered the sky. They blotted out the stars. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields could withstand any assault. The War Marshal stood on his command deck and looked at the small human colony below. Such a tiny thing, so fragile, soon it would be ash and memory. Begin the attack, he ordered. But before his fleet could move, every communication system on every ship suddenly activated. A human voice spoke in perfect language. It was broadcasting from the colony. Attention, Empire. You came to our home, you threatened our families, you killed our people, you thought we would run, you thought we would surrender, you were wrong. The War Marshal tried to shut down the broadcast but couldn't. The human had complete control of their communications. Continued. You wanted to see what humans can do, you wanted to teach us a lesson. Instead, we're going to teach you. Watch carefully. This is why you never defy humans. The broadcast ended. The War Marshal felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Uncertainty. These humans kept surprising him. What other surprises did they have? All ships attack formation, he ordered. Destroy the colony, destroy everything. The fleet began to move. 2,000 ships advancing like a wave of death. On New Haven gave his final orders. All stations, this is it, everything we have, give them everything. Stood at the fusion reactor controls. His hand hovered over the activation switch. Around him, his team was ready. They had run the calculations 100 times. It would work, probably. "Waiting for your signal, Commander," said calmly. Watched the fleet approach. He thought about the civilian fleet still 3 days away. He thought about all the humans who were coming to help. He thought about ramming that capital ship. He thought about farmers picking up rifles. He thought about teachers becoming soldiers. He thought about what it meant to be human. "All ships engage," ordered. "Show them what we're made of." The human forces attacked. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier fired at once. It was chaos and desperation and courage all mixed together. And in the fusion reactor, smiled and activated his device. "Let's see how they like this," he said, and pushed the button. The electromagnetic pulse erupted from the planet like a wave of invisible energy. It spread out at the speed of light, washing over the Vanguard. 200 alien ships went dark instantly. Their shields failed. Their weapons stopped. Their engines died. For exactly 47 seconds, those ships were helpless. Didn't waste a single second. Now hit them now. Every human weapon targeted the disabled ships. Missiles, mining charges, improvised bombs. Everything humanity had created to fight with was unleashed in those precious seconds. The disabled ships were torn apart. Explosions bloomed across the sky like deadly flowers. When the 47 seconds ended, 300 ships were destroyed or crippled. The war marshal stared in horror at the carnage. In less than a minute, humans had destroyed 15% of his fleet. "What are these creatures?" he whispered. The battle became chaos, beautiful, terrible chaos. The fleet recovered from the electromagnetic pulse and pressed their attack with fury. They had numbers. They had superior technology. They had centuries of military experience. But the humans had something else, something that we're only beginning to understand. They had stubbornness that bordered on insanity. Directed ground forces from the command center. Screens showed battles happening everywhere at once. The northern sector was overrun. The western defenses were collapsing. Casualties mounted every second. "Pull back from Grid 12, she ordered. "Concentrate forces at the reactor facility. We can't let them destroy equipment." On the surface, humans fought street by street. The school principal held a defensive position with 20 other civilians. They had never been soldiers, but they learned fast. When troops landed nearby, didn't hesitate. She had children to protect. The aliens were bigger and stronger. Their weapons were more advanced, but they had never fought an enemy this desperate before. Humans used buildings for cover, turned vehicles into bombs, set traps in streets and alleys. Every meter the advanced cost them dearly. In orbit flew a patched-together fighter that probably shouldn't be able to fly at all. The doctors had told him to rest. He had ignored them, was beside him again, navigating through the chaos. "You're going to get us killed," said calmly while dodging weapons fire. "Not today," replied. He targeted a destroyer and fired. The shot punched through weakened shields. "We just need to hold on a little longer." "Until what?" "Until we run out of ships. We're down to 40 vessels. They still have over 1,000. Smiled. "Until the cavalry arrives." As if his words summoned them, new contacts appeared on their sensors. Ships emerging from faster-than-light travel. Lots of ships. But these weren't. Commander saw them first on his long-range scanners. His heart leaped. New contacts, multiple faster-than-light signatures. Identify them. Lieutenant Minu worked frantically at his console. Then he started laughing. Actually laughing. "Sir, it's them, it's Earth's fleet, and they're not alone." The display showed hundreds of ships appearing in space. Earth's official military fleet was there, yes. Battleships and carriers and destroyers. But behind them came the civilian fleet. cargo haulers with weapons welded to their hulls, colony ships converted to troop carriers, mining vessels that looked exactly like the ones defending New Haven. Over 600 ships, every single one broadcasting human identification codes. They had come early. Somehow, impossibly, they had arrived 2 weeks ahead of schedule. The fleet commander, Admiral, opened a channel to New Haven. Her face appeared on screen. She was old, maybe 60, with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. "Commander," Admiral said, "we heard you were having some trouble with unwanted visitors. Thought you could use some help." Felt tears on his face. He didn't bother wiping them away. "Admiral, you're early." "We burned out half our engines getting here," replied. "But we couldn't let our people fight alone. Besides, the civilians wouldn't take no for an answer. Every human colony, every station, everyone who could hold a weapon wanted to come. So here we are." She paused, looking at something off-screen. "Now, what do you say we show these aliens what happens when they mess with humanity?" The War Marshal watched the human reinforcements arrive and felt something close to panic. This was impossible. His intelligence said the Earth fleet was weeks away. How had they arrived so fast? "All ships focus fire on the new arrivals," he ordered. "Destroy them before they can organize." But it was too late for that. The human fleet didn't need time to organize. Every captain knew exactly what to do. They had come to fight, and fight they would. The Earth battleships opened fire first. Their weapons were more advanced than anything the colony had. Energy beams and missiles filled space, but more impressive were the civilian ships. Cargo haulers released clouds of improvised mines. Colony ships launched fighters and bombers. Even small personal craft joined the attack, darting between larger vessels like angry hornets. The line broke. Watched the battle from her station and saw an opportunity. The communication network was still compromised. She could access any ship in their fleet. She made a decision. "Commander, I'm taking control of their damaged vessels," announced. "What?" Was busy coordinating with Admiral. "How?" "Their security is terrible," said. She was typing faster than seemed possible. "Any ship with damaged systems is vulnerable. I can override their controls and turn their weapons against them." "Do it," ordered. Across the battlefield, disabled ships suddenly came back to life, but they didn't rejoin their fleet. Instead, they turned their weapons on their former allies. Confusion rippled through the ranks. They were being attacked by their own ships. The War Marshal screamed orders, but nobody was listening anymore. His fleet was in chaos. Humans attacked from every direction. Their own ships had become enemies. Nothing made sense. "We need to retreat," his tactical officer shouted. "We have superior numbers," the War Marshal argued. But even as he said it, he knew it was over. Numbers didn't matter. Technology didn't matter. The humans had something his people didn't have. They had the will to win no matter the cost. On the planet's surface, prepared his final surprise. The fusion reactor had one more burst left in it, one more electromagnetic pulse. He had been saving it for this exact moment. "Commander, I can hit their command ships," said. "It'll knock out their leadership, but I need them to get closer." "Understood immediately. Bait them in, make them think we're vulnerable." The human forces pulled back, creating an opening. The desperate for any advantage pushed forward. Their command ships advanced to coordinate the attack. "Now," ordered. The second electromagnetic pulse erupted, smaller than the first but more focused. It hit the command ships directly. Every single one went dark, including the War Marshal's flagship. Without leadership, the fleet fell apart completely. Ships began to retreat. Some fled in random directions. Others just stopped fighting and drifted. Admiral's fleet pressed the advantage. They didn't pursue the fleeing ships. They didn't need to. The message was clear enough. In his darkened flagship, the War Marshal sat in silence. Emergency lights flickered. His crew worked to restore power, but he wasn't thinking about power. He was thinking about how badly he had underestimated these humans. They should have been easy to defeat. They were so young, so primitive, but they had spirit. They had courage. They had an absolute refusal to accept defeat. The Empire had conquered 200 species. They had faced armies and fleets and weapons of incredible power, but they had never faced anything like humans. His communication system crackled back to life. A human voice spoke. It was Commander. War Marshal, this is your only chance to retreat, said. Take your ships and leave. If you stay, we will destroy every single one of them. This is not a threat. This is a promise. The War Marshal looked at his tactical display. He had started with 2,000 ships. He had fewer than 800 left. The humans had destroyed over half his fleet. Retreat, he ordered quietly. All ships retreat to space. The surviving alien vessels fled. They disappeared into faster-than-light travel one by one, running from an enemy they couldn't understand and couldn't defeat. On New Haven, people emerged from shelters and defensive positions. They looked up at the sky and saw the alien ships leaving. They saw the human fleet victorious above them. They had won. The celebration started immediately. People hugged strangers in the streets. Children laughed and cried. Soldiers dropped their weapons and just stood there, unable to believe it was over. Found in the reactor facility, he was sitting on the floor, exhausted beyond words. She sat beside him. You did it, said. Your crazy plan actually worked. Our crazy plan, corrected, all of us together. And landed their battered fighter and just sat in the cockpit for a long moment. They were alive. Against all odds, impossibly, they were alive. Next time, said, let's pick a quieter colony. Laughed, where's the fun in that? 3 days later, the High Council sent an official message to Earth. It was a request for peace negotiations. The proud empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds was asking humans for mercy. The negotiations took place on a neutral station. The representatives came expecting difficult terms. What they got was worse than they imagined. Admiral led the human delegation. She presented the terms. Peace, yes, but also a public apology broadcast across the entire galaxy, and a memorial to be built listing every human who died defending New Haven. They would pay for it. These terms are humiliating, the diplomat protested. They're generous, replied coldly. You attacked our people. You killed our families. The fact that you're sitting here negotiating instead of running for your lives is mercy enough. Take the deal or we'll come for your next. They took the deal. 6 months later, Commander was promoted to Admiral, became the official governor of New Haven, received job offers from every defense contractor in human space. He turned them all down and went back to mining. And got married in a ceremony held in the rebuilt Colony Plaza. Thousands of people attended. It was the happiest day New Haven had ever seen. Published all the tactical data she had collected. She released it freely to every species in the galaxy. Knowledge should be shared, she said, especially knowledge about how to defend yourself. And across the galaxy, other species took notice. There was a new power rising, a young species that had only been in space for 200 years. They didn't have the best technology. They didn't have the biggest fleets. But they had something more important. They had each other. They had learned a lesson that day. So had everyone else watching. You don't defy humans, because humans don't just fight back. They make you regret every choice that led to that moment. They turn your strength against you. They sacrifice everything to protect their own. And most importantly, they never ever give up. Years later, a young student asked her teacher about the war with humanity. The teacher was old enough to remember. She had served in that fleet, had seen what humans could do. What are humans like? The student asked. The teacher thought for a long moment. Then she said, humans are what happens when you take a species that should be weak and give them a reason to be strong. They're what happens when you threaten something they love. They're terrifying and beautiful and absolutely unstoppable when they decide to fight. Did we really lose to them? Yes, the teacher said quietly, and we should be grateful we survived to tell about it. On New Haven, life went on. Children played in the streets, farmers tended their fields, engineers built new things. The colony grew and prospered. But everyone remembered. They remembered the day the aliens came. They remembered the day they fought back. They remembered the day they proved that humans, no matter how few, no matter how outmatched, would never surrender. It was the day the aliens learned why you never defy humans. And the galaxy would never forget it.